So, how do you wrap up an extraordinary conference, an historic conference at the United Nations? That job is way above my pay grade. So, I will hand over the microphone to somebody who has the appropriate status and title. Madam Funzile, UN Women Executive Director.
Thank you very much for managing us in this manner and keeping us on our toes. I want to start by adding my own definition of barbershop, a place where I was told men discuss sports, they discuss politics, and they discuss women not in an unflattering manner. So in changing the discourse of the discussion of the men in the barbershop about women, it has to be about addressing gender equality, and it should not be in an unflattering manner. So these are the leaders of that movement of changing the discourse in the barbershop. I want to thank the governments of Iceland and Suriname for this great initiative, the support that we received also from the government of Turkey. Thank the many PRs who came forward and were actually shop stewards for this conference. I saw PRs doing real work, running around, writing down, reporting. It was really wonderful to see the unity of purpose. And of course, also doing something they do so well, addressing us and being thought leaders as their jobs require. So thank you to those that made their commitments now in this session. I also want to thank our speakers and the many panelists who were brilliant since yesterday. I want to remind us of something that was said by Professor Michael Kimmel yesterday, who reminded us about the importance of being aware of privilege, especially a privilege that you don't deserve because you did not work for and you don't even want, like patriarchy, but nevertheless, it is your burden. And the least you could do is to make sure that you engage with the changes that would make sure that that privilege does not work against other people. And that is what we are building here. Among some of the excellent interactions and the sessions that we had also was a session where we unpacked patriarchy and the negative effects it has on both men and women. And of course, another question was also, what is the positive impact of patriarchy on men and women? That was a very interesting discussion because both men had to identify those advantages and women had to do that. The group for women, after spending a long time not knowing what to write and not agreeing, they said that the only advantage of patriarchy is that as women, they have much closer relationship with their children because of the stereotype role, the caring role that women are given. And then again, they scratched that because they didn't want to associate the word advantage with patriarchy. But it was a very interesting exercise because everybody was forced to think about some things that you take for granted. You think you know the story, but actually in the discussion it was clear that we can never stop learning. We have to continue to discuss these issues. So achieving gender equality is about disrupting the status quo and not negotiating it. It is about breaking the social norms and gender stereotypes that limit opportunities for women and girls and restrict men and boys to certain roles, many of whom also restrict men from being their best. We want to change the narrative as we leave this barbershop so that we do not talk about women as the vulnerable, but we talk about women as the resilient leaders that they are, and go further, take the practical action to ensure that women are in the places where they can demonstrate this resilience and play the roles in society that benefit themselves, their family, and all of us. As we leave today, we would like to see a process that will make more men to be the leaders of the Orange campaign, to be the ones that are talking louder and are taking action to address the issue of ending violence against women. In a way, they are the fresh face of the campaign, because I think women are already now regarded as the usual suspects. People expect us to say these things. By unleashing men to society, we're actually bringing the next group of combatants to address this issue, and hopefully to take it also to another direction in their own creative way, bringing their own strengths to this campaign. We also need to be aware that we live in a world that is full of prejudice. So all of the institutions that we live in, even if they've got noble principles such as the UN, have inbuilt prejudice, and patriarchy affects them. So we have to nitpick what is patriarchy in my institution and in the places that I work, and together like this, we highlight those things so that we can support one another on how we bring about changes in the areas that we are in. Because it's not enough to be a good boy and a good man in a bad system. Our challenge is actually to change the system, because it will always bring the good men down. I always like to remind us of what Nelson Mandela said: when good men do nothing, they conspire against women. So it is this action that we want. We want to make sure that the post-2015 framework, enriched by the thoughts that we're generating between and amongst ourselves, is informed in a manner that will ensure that every aspect of that agenda takes into consideration the depth and the intensity of patriarchy and its destructive impact, and that through the actions that we are contemplating, we are actually changing the system, but also we're using the post-2015 agenda to create a world that will be totally different by the time we get to 2030. We want to make sure that when we are CEOs, we are leading in removing the glass ceilings. We are not asking women to break the glass ceilings. It's dangerous because, women will cut themselves on the glass. We are wanting to make sure that instead of women protesting against forced and early marriages, men just refuse to marry children. They must take the stand. We're throwing back the responsibility. We are saying that we want our good men to be the ones that fight for gender parity in institutions and just refuse to sit in a panel where there is no parity, except for today. We want men to denounce the illegitimacy of regulations that discriminate against women in their country and in society. That is why we have created the He for She platform, through which we are crowdsourcing this goodwill, so that together, you men and boys, and especially men mentoring also the younger boys, can share some of the stories and the good things that can be done to address this. We are in He for She, us as UN women, getting out of our comfort zone as well. Because we are UN women, our job can be narrowly defined as that of working with women. So what are we doing working with men? We realize that in the bigger picture, this is a joint responsibility of both sexes. So in He for She, step 1, we ask you to make a decision to commit to an active role to end patriarchy. So which means that even before a person signs and presses the button, even if you've done it, it's always good to reflect. It's important to reflect, what is it actually that I'm going to do different? Many of the people who have signed are already gender conscious. They don't beat up women, probably, I think, most of them. But there's much more that you could do because we live in a system that is patriarchal. So everybody has some homework to do to support the change of the system. So if you are a CEO, you could address the gender pay gap. You can make sure that if you are at home, you can address the issue of unequal paid work and how it is distributed more to the women. There's a number of activities that all of us can undertake, so that by the time we sign, there's a program of action that you are implementing because you are a He for She. Because if we don't couple He for She signatory with action, we actually demean the commitment that you are making. The height of this commitment is going to be the action and the consistency and the resilience that will come out of it. And of course, step 3, use the donate button generously. There is a donate button there. And of course, take the action and stay with the cause until we've been able to see the changes, because there was no revolution and fundamental change of society that is achieved in a short term. So we're in this for the long haul, and it's not going to be always nice. And sometimes we have to give up some of the privileges that we have. And we know that many of you would have thought about these things, and that is what is going to make you role models. And would like that you share your stories, so that you can upload them on our website, so that through your stories, you'll be educating others. And we'd like to change these stories and continuously change the stories, so that every time you get into the website, there's a fresh story that you're going to read. And I'd love to read stories from the PRs as well, both your families, and the stories about what the changes that you are bringing at work. So he for she, through you, is very much open for business, and we hope that together with all the other formations of organizations that work on this issue, we're going to form a much bigger block of a solidarity movement that is taking the world forward and changing ourselves while we are changing the world. As we leave here, we would like you to make sure that you speak out, that you stand up, and that you create more barbershop conversations of this nature. Thank you.